All right, Teddy, how have you been, my friend?
Melissa, doing good. Excited to get this episode started. I understand we're still on the alienation and how deep this stuff goes. So, like I said last time, I'm saying it again. You're the expert here, Melissa, and I think your insight and your knowledge on these topics can really help a lot of guys. So, I know you got some cool stuff to share today. So let's have at it.
So you hit the nail on the head. There is a lot to alienation. There's so many different aspects of it, and everything kind of blends together, right? Everything kind of merges together. So you have alienation. We have all these different aspects that we talked about in our last video, or the vilification. There's emasculation, and everything just overlaps and blends together. The gaslighting to make you feel like you're crazy. I mean, sometimes my clients will come in and they'll say, is this me? Like, am I just crazy? You question everything that you know to be factual, and it's just part of it. It is a campaign to destroy you, your mental health, your judgment, your parenting, your parental rights, and your relationship with your kids. It's a campaign that hits you. It hits you vocationally, hits you financially, hits you legally, socially, you name it. It hits you from every aspect of your life. And we want to talk a little bit today about why the courts get it wrong so often, why counselors get it wrong so often. And so I'm as a master's level therapist. Before I went to law school, I was a child and adolescent therapist, and I worked in an inpatient psychiatric hospital for children and worked for a child psychiatrist in his private practice. And I will say, the insight that I had, or the sort of visceral reactions or the gut instincts that I had, really didn't come from the formal education. Formal education teaches you about these different models, about Erickson's psychosocial development and about Sigmund Freud and about all these different theories that are out there. And it's all fine and good. But unless you really have a gut instinct for this, I'm not sure how effective you're going to be as a counselor. But we'll talk about why some counselors don't get it wrong and why definitely, why the courts get it wrong. So, and I know in your experience too, Teddy, talking about just the how you felt, how you were made to feel, the being gaslit, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
questioning your own sanity sometimes. What was that process like for you when it first began versus your insight that you have right now?
Well, I never second guessed myself. Okay. Um, the gaslighting continues. I want to touch on this. The recruitment continues. As soon as they have to start recruiting others, okay, to come after me, it lets me know, wow, this person's points aren't really valid at all because all they're trying to do is recruit other people who I may not have the best relationship with for one reason or another. And they get to MF me to them and try to bring them on to their side. I think that's a big part of the gaslighting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as soon as they have to start to recruit, it lets me know, you know what? They're in trouble. They're in trouble. If I'm that dangerous to them in a, I don't mean dangerous in a physical way,
Sure.
um, dangerous in a legal way. If I'm that dangerous to them that they have to now go out and recruit and try to gather people around so they have this many people who really have nothing to do with anything that's going on, but
Yeah.
it lets me know that I'm on the high road there. Um, it,
And
it is. It is a mentally exhausting thing, but being through it, Melissa, and I hope the guys watching this being through it, listen, you getting inside your own head about it and stressing yourself out about it isn't going to fix the situation. It's not, you can't change it in here. Okay. Sometimes you just have to let people act how they're going to act, do what they're going to do. You have to stay on your chosen course for whatever fits um, your situation. And don't let that stuff get you down. Like I know it's hard to do. And again, Melissa, I've been through it, like, Jesus, thousands and thousands, like over probably combined $60,000 plus in attorney's fees and so on and so forth. Yeah, it can, if you let it get to you, it can get to you. But stay the course. What's going to happen is going to happen.
But you can't try to rationalize things or try to make sense of because it is that crazy. But understanding the process and understanding the depth of the waters that you're in will make it easier to tread the water if you know what to expect. So our last video, we heard a lot from, I can't say, not going to say her name, but I'll just call her the Alabama Peach, right? So
yes, that was a good one, Melissa.
We heard a lot. And during this case too, one thing that she did on top of it was the constant belittling of him, emasculating of him. One thing that she did was she went to her counselor and recruited the counselor to be on her side, right? So the counselor has never met her husband, my client, never met him. And yet somehow there are these backwoods diagnosing that is going on, or telling her, oh, he shouldn't be doing this to you, or it's wrong the way he's treating you, versus focusing on her behaviors, her reactions, and her perceptions. Right. So that's one real criticism that I have of the counseling profession, is when someone comes in, it's usually because there's some sort of behaviors that they're struggling with. There's some sort of adapting that they're not doing. There's a reason why they're there. They have to get help to get back on track with their life. Now, a lot of times, and I focused more on children. I love working with kids. Adults, in my experience, some of them don't want to get better. They don't want that. They want to go to counselor for the counselor to pat them on the back and tell them, oh, poor you, poor you. You're
the victimhood mentality.
Exactly. You're everyone's victim. Come back every week for the rest of your life. I'll have a client, and you'll have somebody over there telling you how horrible everybody else is and how fantastic that you are. Okay. So that is a big criticism that I have of counselors, because your job as a counselor is for them to get better and then send them on their way where they're no longer needing your services. But that aside, so our little Alabama Peach, that was one thing that she would throw at him during arguments, during conversations, is that you are treating me badly. You are abusing me. My counselor even says so, right? Now, clearly she's recruiting other people who've never spoke to him. I don't know his side of the story, to be on their side, but this is also part of this shaming of him to try to control his behavior, right? So this shaming tries to get him to back off, tries to get him to do what she wants him to do. But I want you to hear this, and I want you to hear this little blip that's in the and the last part of this, where she says, my counselor even says so. And again, I want to put a language alert out there, but this is what you're about to hear and what you heard in the last video. This is not uncommon behavior at all.
For a few fucking dollars? Fine. It's not my life you're ruining. It's your own. You're going to be the one without fucking family. You're going to be the one without a home. You're going to be the one without most of your money and most of your alimony. You're going to be the one without, not me. I will be fine without you, because I will get most of what you have. Do you not understand that? I am trying to give you the chance to not lose everything.
I've given you the...
No, you are losing everything. You're gonna lose your wife, you're gonna lose your fucking kids, you're losing your home, all because you want a tight wad on the fucking debit card. That's it. That's all that is to you. All we are is a debit card to you. You are willing to risk losing everything you have to prove some fucking point to me.
Can you please not yell?
No, because I'm fucking mad. I'm mad and I'm hurt. And I'm tired of you hurting me. You are losing everything. And you're okay with that. The only thing I'm losing is a husband. That's it. A controlling husband. That is the only thing I will be losing.
I'm not a controlling husband.
You are a control. What you're doing is controlling. You are borderline abusive.
I'm not abusive.
You are borderline abusive. My therapist even said this is borderline abusive. Where the fuck do you think I got that?
Okay. So in this case, there was a whole lot of financial irresponsibility by the wife, where the husband had to like input a budget, had to say, you're not going to spend like you were. And that's borderline abuse. Even my therapist says so, right? So now we're recruiting the therapist to come in and say, oh, no, this is abusive, that you don't have just open reign to the debit card. That is abuse of you. Never mind, you don't have money, that you're spending all the money in the household, right? Never mind. So this recruitment is so common in cases where you have alienation, because I have to get people on their side, right? So it's not only counselors, it's attorneys, it's court staff, it's guardian ad litems, all right? Some states have representatives that are appointed just to your child. It's witnesses, it is school officials, it is doctors, it is teachers, it is across the board, the recruitment. Now, in my experience, this is my personal experience as a child, okay? My dad's tall, right? My dad's like 6'4", a Marine, just got back from Vietnam. And my biological mother's about 4'10". She's this tiny little thing. And as a child, it was so perplexing to me to watch her just bald-faced lie, and people believed her because she was this tiny little woman. And my dad was this big giant guy. Well, clearly, I mean, if she said it, it had to be true. But even as a small child, I would hear the lies and I would think, well, that's not true. And then as I got older, about 10 years old, I would start to say, that's a lie. I would start to call her out on these things. But it was amazing to me, Teddy, that up until that point, if she said it, it was gospel. She didn't have to prove it. Just if she said it and it was to the detriment of my dad, which meant it was to the detriment of my relationship with my dad. But understand this, when you're going through family court with an alienator, people who don't even know might say some horrible things about you. They might question your parenting. They're going to question your judgment. They'll question everything that you do. Now, one thing that bothers me beyond measure about these custody cases is when men are labeled as angry or, well, they have anger issues. Now, Teddy, has anyone ever told you have anger issues? You have problems with anger?
When I was younger, I was told that. Listen, I've mellowed a lot.
Let's talk about, did any of your exes ever?
Oh, yeah. Melissa, here's the thing. Okay, and here's why. Okay, this is what they go for. Mm-hmm. Melissa, I am 6'4". I am 300 pounds. I am covered in tattoos. Mm-hmm. I was a Division I ball player. I was a cop for nearly 15 years and a combat veteran in the military. Okay. I have most people who don't know me, like, let's say if they just ran into me or they saw me on the street, I can be a pretty scary, intimidating guy. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing they try to hit you on. Yes. Well, look at them.
Yes.
Of course it happened. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, guys, my size that look the way that I look, we don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, if I was 5'3", skinny, and wore a 3-piece suit everywhere, nobody would believe the shit. But because I look the way that I look, it's easy for somebody out there to say, well, yeah, he's got anger issues. Just look at him. Okay? That's what bothers me the most. You know, if somebody talked to me for 30 seconds, Melissa, they'd see that I think I throw a lot of people off because the look and how I carry myself with somebody are two totally different things, you know? Mm-hmm. But they always try to go for, he's a big, tattooed, scary guy, and I feel intimidated and borderline abuse, and like just in that video. It's like, yeah, well, if I was, again, 5'2", 100 pounds, nobody would say anything like that.
Well, and there might be times where you did display anger during your family court cases, but they want to talk about the anger, but they don't want to talk about the fact that the anger is justified or that what triggered the anger. Nobody wants to focus on that. People just want to talk about the way you reacted. Never, sorry about that. Reacted to
Hey,
what?
you're angry. You're throwing shit around, on your desk right now, Melissa.
Exactly. Nobody cares what happened that led up to the reaction. And that's you I want you guys to understand this, that if you react versus respond, which reacting is, I mean, that's we're human beings. We react to different types of stimuli. But when you're angry, you can bet that that behavior is going to be introduced in the courtroom, and you're going to have to be the one to go in and say, let me back up. Let me back up to what was said, what was done, the lies that were told, to where this anger is justified. But the problem with this, and we talked about this before, is frustration in men often manifests as anger. Frustration in women manifests as emotion. They cry, right? So that's just, men and women just react to things differently. But when you're going through family court, it's easier to label you as abusive. It's easier to label you as someone who's unpredictable, that you have this erratic behavior, that's you're a danger to your child based upon these normal reactions to situations that would frustrate or anger anyone. Right? Someone tries to take your children away with lies, and then when you're trying to explain yourself or defend yourself, oftentimes you're not allowed to do that, or you're sent to these court-appointed professionals who have predetermined. They basically, you're guilty before you even walk in there. Right? A lot of them do that. Now, I have a big problem with these counselors and psychologists that are nestled up to the family court teat, to where the judges say, hey, I want you to do this evaluation, or do that evaluation, or to do this testing. I've had clients referred for testing to where we say, I give you these names, call these people to do an interview. I give you all this other stuff. They don't include this. They don't even look at that stuff. And then the evaluation comes back and it is just piss poor. And then you have to go in and try to argue with the judge. So I'm not a fan of, I'm not a big fan of the field of, the therapy
Why
field.
do they even let these people involved in the family court system anyway?
Here's what I think. Because it's easier for the judges to justify their decisions if they have input from professionals. Then they say, okay, well, here's what the GAO's investigation found, or here's what this counselor determined to be. But unless that counselor is sitting in that chair in the witness stand, where you can ask them questions and you can say, well, I have this journal right here, and the journal is talking about the exact opposite of what you testified to. So you have to really impeach them with their own science, which is kind of pseudoscience. But I'm not a fan of that, because individual biases still come in. That comes back to, let's look at when I was going through my training. I drew from my experience more than I did anything else. So you have a lot of counselors and therapists out there. They have the piece of paper on the wall that they're credentialed, and they have no idea what they're doing at the end of the day. And they're making things worse. Unless you have someone who understands alienation, I mean, from the time the marriage starts till the time that this child walks in your office, unless this expert understands that a child can appear to be perfectly functioning, yet still an alienated child, they're going to make things worse. And we'll go over that too. But that's,
how come you can see this, Melissa, but a lot of judges out there across the country, they don't see this. They don't realize this.
First of all, I care enough to get to know this. I care enough to know this. Secondly, I came through this. I came through severe alienation as a child. I came through a household where I was raised by a single mother, where there was times in our childhood where there were men coming in and out of the house, or times we were left alone. I saw the lies. I know the truth. And I'm the one that had to pay the consequences. I did. Teddy, you've taken a silver bullet in family court. We talked about that term. You've taken a literal bullet in combat. You've taken just about every kind of bullets there is to take. That anguish breeds passion. So when you're asking me, why do I know this and they don't know this? Because I care enough, because it has affected me personally, because I see it on a daily basis with my clients and their children. I care enough and have lived this to understand the process. When these clients are coming into my office, I'm not just trying to win cases, people. I have to understand that. I'm not just trying to say, oh, I got full custody for this dad, because that's not the goal. The goal is to preserve relationships with both parents, even though I'm dad's attorney. But that's the problem, is that you have a profession, a legal profession, right? You have to have most law schools, you have to have a bachelor's degree to go to law school. Your bachelor's could be in engineering, it could be in underwater basket weaving, it could be in women's studies, which I'm not even sure what that is, but it could be in anything. It doesn't have to be related to the practice of law. So they go through law school. I took a family law course in law school. I got a C, and I argued with the professor the entire time because they were just wrong. What they were saying was wrong. It didn't make any sense. Had nothing to do with what was best for children. So here it is, essentially my specialty, and I got a C in law school, right, in my family law course. So that said, you have no training whatsoever on really how to work with families effectively, so that when the case is over, you have parents, children postured the best they can be to have a healthy relationship and healthy life going forward. In fact, the opposite happens. Lawyers get involved. They make things far more contentious than it needs to be. And then at the end of the litigation, the families are in such crisis that they can't co-parent. Their relationship with the children usually suffers. But then, you know what? Then these kids just move from the family court system into the juvenile court system and then into the criminal system.
Mm-hmm.
So why do I know this and they don't? Because I care enough to understand this process to try to stop it, to try to at least make the biggest dent that I can make. You know, we can only do what we can do. But
well, Melissa, I want to say this too, and I don't want to throw all counselors under the bus.
yeah, I do know one good one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
When my wife and I were going through counseling together after everything that went down with me, I said, listen, you make the appointment, you pick the place, let's go. She made an appointment, she picked the place, we walk in. The guy who ran the place happened to know who I was. He came out in the lobby. Teddy, how you doing? You know, you're here for counseling and everything else. And the look on her face was like, oh, shit, here we go. And I said, listen, yeah, we're here for counseling. I said, apparently you know who I am. It can't be with you. It's got to be with somebody else in your office. So we went and had a session with somebody else in his office. And, you know, we laid out everything that went down, and this counselor looked at my wife and she goes, so essentially, you ruined this man's life. And she didn't like what she had to say.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, we're not going back there. The owner knows you, and this was a setup, and this. And I'm like, hold on. You made that appointment. You picked this office, not me. We went to a second counselor. Explained what was going on with the situation, and the second counselor looked at her and said, why did you do what you did if, like, you lied about this man publicly, took this into a court where there was nothing, and tried to embarrass and humiliate this man? And he said, has he ever laid a finger on you? She goes, no. Has he ever raised his voice with you? She said, no. The counselor said, then why did you do what you did?
Yeah.
And again, she didn't like that. So we had to go to she was shopping counselors.
Exactly.
Because a counselor kept telling her the truth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And she's like, I don't want to go back to that counselor. They probably know who you are too. Pick another one. I don't care. That's fine. Like, let's try and get some common ground. Let's try and make this work. You know, I want you to be happy. All right. But like, this is the second one now that said, you know, pretty much I was the victim in this thing. So, you know
There's a lot of counselors who refuse to work with litigants who are actively and going through litigation.
Well, we weren't actively going through that at that point.
Well, and I
And
was going to say, and I think those are the best ones because they understand that if you're in active litigation, you just might be shopping for a hired whore. And we call these people, these experts that come in during litigation, the hired whores, because essentially you can hire somebody to pay for just about anything that you need them to say.
Mhm.
I haven't done that. In fact, it's rare that we use experts in our cases. Well, first of all, because my clientele, my base is pretty blue collar. First of
Yeah.
all, experts are very expensive. But also with due diligence, I mean, the truth comes out, especially in Alabama, we're able to record stuff. So we just like these recordings here, right? Help this guy who was going to lose everything, get, custody of his kids, and he did not lose his house. But that aside, my criticism of these counselors who work with family court on a regular basis, they become friends with the attorneys. Right there, they're compromised.
Yep.
I've had cases with a counselor who is tied to the family court system, whose opinion changed if the wife retained a new attorney who just happened to be her friend. Her opinion would change. My opinion of that counselor is in the toilet. I will not use her. I will openly object, and I will tell the judge why in front of a room full of everybody. If she's in the room, I will say what my objection is. But that's the goal of counseling, right? Is to get the truth, to be confronted with the truth. And that's what hurts, by the way. The truth is the most hurtful thing that you will ever hear, but you need to hear it. In fact, those of you who have friends who tell you the truth, right? Be lucky if you have friends who
Those
tell
are
you.
your true friends.
That's right. They're your true friends, and it hurts and it causes you to look at yourself, but you need to do it if you're going to grow. And that goes with, you look at this profession, the family court profession. You have judges. We have judges. And actually, I don't want to be too critical of the judges who became family law attorney. I'm sorry, who became family court judges, and they were never family law attorneys. Those are actually some of our best judges because they don't have the bad habits that some of these family law attorneys have, and they still have a little bit of common sense. But for the most part, you become a family law attorney, and then you become a family court judge. Most of the judges, these are political positions. Most of them are. Okay, you look at the appointments that are done. Some states are done by pure appointments. These are political appointments. All right, I know South Carolina does appointments, and they have huge problems over there. But even where they're elected, you have to run in the right party. You make the right friends, you can get elected. Rarely do you see judges that have the background, the knowledge, and the know-how. And in fact, judges will become frustrated with you as the attorney if you actually try to bring in the truth and do a good job and call out some of the attorneys who are doing a bad job. The judges will actually get frustrated with you. That's where good documentation comes in as an attorney. But that's what you want as a counselor. You want somebody to tell you the truth, right?
Well, Melissa, I'll tell you this too. Another with counselors, and I'm sorry, I just want to rewind for 1 second. There's counselors out there too that they will contact the other party. Hey, listen, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to keep professional, but here's my personal number. You ever want to hang out? Let's go hang. They become like best freaking friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And like the second that happens, anything that counselor has to say in court should be tossed.
Yeah.
Completely tossed.
I agree. I absolutely.
It's happened.
It happens. It happens quite a bit. I have a case right now where that has happened. But you look back at alienation. This is one reason why just traditional therapy doesn't work with alienation cases, is because look at Stockholm syndrome, for instance,
mm-hmm.
right? Now, Stockholm syndrome is you have people who become loyal to their abusers, and these are the people who kidnap them. We've heard cases of children who were kidnapped, who were brutalized by their abusers, and yet there was a sense of loyalty to them. So you look at alienated kids. You put alienated kids in an environment with traditional therapy, and they're going to side with the abuser. Well,
mm-hmm. It's out of fear too. A lot of it's out of fear.
And a counselor who doesn't know any better will say, well, look at here. this child has such a good bond with mom, and they're kind of skeptical of dad. And which, okay, genius, right? So you're going to write down, well, I'm observing that the child's climbing all over mom, but they're ignoring dad. And they come in the courtroom as this expert and they write down this observation that is completely wrong. Because when you have a child undergoing through alienation, most of the time they relate with the abusive parent. That's what they do. That's the trademark of alienation. But traditional therapists don't understand that. So when they come in the courtroom, they're giving a judge who also is not an expert, doesn't have a gut for this, would say, oh, well, that would make sense, right? It only makes sense when you see a child, having a good relationship with one parent, not the other parent. It must mean that this other parent is doing something wrong. That is not the case, because with parental alienation, relationships are flipped. Everything's flipped on its head. It's flipped upside down. So judges will say, hey, I'm going to order you to go to therapy with this Joe Blow down the street. And then they go to Joe Blow down the street, and Joe Blow writes his report up, and it is full of garbage because he doesn't know, he doesn't have the training. And this was something that I do. I hit the training hard. Man, I hit them hard, and none of them, I have yet to have one counselor respond intelligently to the court or to my questions that would lead someone to believe that they understood the complexities of alienation, right? So there was a guy who, Dr. Miller, I think is his name was. We're going to play the video, but he actually testified. All right, he testified in front of Congress, and I'm not sure if it was Congress, but it was a legislative body, explaining, look, this is why the courts get it wrong. So I'm gonna bring this up here, and I'm gonna play this for you guys.
Great video, by the way.
What you need is a subspecialist in alienation and estrangement who sees it all the time, not the best psychologist in the world who rarely sees it. And so very briefly, the short answer to this question, how does this happen, is this field is highly counterintuitive to anyone who doesn't have extensive training and experience dealing with it. Most people will usually get it wrong. And when I say people, I mean attorneys, psychologists, other mental health experts. The majority of the time, they will not only get the case and the evaluation and the recommendations wrong, they will get it exactly backwards. First of all, and think how counterintuitive this is, in an alienation setting, most children will align with the abusive parent. It's like these kids that you find that have been living with their abductors for years and then they resist capture, or Stockholm syndrome. Very counterintuitive. Number two, what we would call pathological enmeshment, and I'll define that briefly. It means that the alienating parent has an unhealthy enmeshment with the child to the point where the child has lost his or her individuality, a severe erosion of critical reasoning skills, boundary violations, sleeping with the other parent, or at least doing the bidding of the other parent, inappropriate sharing of information, which all the lawyers have heard of. Pathological enmeshment is a very serious psychiatric problem. And to a non-expert, it looks exactly like a warm, close, loving, healthy relationship. The non-expert comes in with perhaps a PhD or an MD in psychiatry or psychology. And what they see is let's just say mother and father for simplicity, but it's about a 50-50 spread of who does what these days. The two little girls are tightly bound to the mother. Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. They look at dad and say, I don't want to see him. He's a bad man. She's perfect. He's rotten. The non-expert says, wow, look at that great relationship. They really don't know how to probe to see if there are three types of pathological enmeshment: infantilization, adultification, making them little adults. Why don't you decide if you want to see dad? Right there, that's adultification. Right there, that's pathological enmeshment. So I repeat, pathological enmeshment to a non-subspecialist, to an experienced forensic psychiatrist, Looks just like a warm, healthy relationship. The fundamental attribution error means you look at behavior and you think it's, if you see an angry man, someone who's angry, you say, he's an angry man. You think it's his character. In general, he's an angry man. Never mind that the reason he's angry is someone just stole his car or his wallet. We're hardwired to say, oh, I'm going to stay away from that guy. He's displaying anger. So if the anger is situational, then it's an error. Now, the relevance to us is that when an interviewer sees a severe case of alienation, the alienating parent is cool, calm, and collected. He or she is probably a borderline, a sociopath, or a narcissist, or all three, and is a master manipulator, has learned to convincingly mimic normal behavior, and presents very well. Oh, yes, I encourage the child's relationship with his father or his mother. By contrast, the targeted parent has PTSD, has not seen the child in God knows how long, maybe years, has been told that he's the one who's the problem or she's the one, and comes in all intense, all angry, and all stressed out. Now, I personally sat through a whole course at an AFCC meeting where the person teaching the course said to the people in the group, you can go by what you see. If the parent presents anxious and intense, you can be sure that's how they parent. No. That's an elementary error in clinical reasoning and decision making, not if it's a fundamental attribution error. The severe cases are fundamentally different than moderate cases. In a moderate case, it is very reasonable to try to educate the parent to be more cooperative. But in a severe case, where you have what one expert's called an obsessed alienator, that person with almost 100% certainty has a severe personality disorder. Normal people just don't do that to their children. And one clue would be that they block access for years on end for trivial, frivolous reasons that you would never block access to your children for. Another indication or indicator would be the repeated breaching of court orders, which again, a normal person would never do. So just to give you a glimpse of the pattern, when you see excuses like they don't like him, they don't want to see him, and I'm not going to force them, you should sit bolt upright in your chair. Normal psychotherapy makes these cases worse. So if it's a skilled psychotherapist who thinks you can come in and do dyadic therapy, well, why don't you find something to apologize for? Johnny, how did that make you feel? That's a disaster. Don't try that. Even with a medium case, they will almost always get catastrophically worse. So you have to match the therapist with the kid. That's my answer.
Okay, I'm going to take those down because he goes into these reunification programs that necessarily don't go into what we're talking about. Oh.
Now, Melissa, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. There are cases where a child has been alienated from a parent. Could be a year, could be 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And do you see this where the courts will say, where the one parent used to have equal time, like as close to 50-50 as you could have, and then something happens with the two parents, and then the one parent says, you're not going to see that other parent. And it could be 6 months, a year, 2 years. Mm-hmm. Then the courts will be like, well, we'll get back into it slow with supervised visitation.
They graduated. It's graduated. Yes.
Yeah. When it used to be, the one parent had the world, and now it's for no reason whatsoever. Now it needs to go back to supervised. Do you see that a lot?
We see that a lot. I see that, if there's no harm to this child, I see that more of as a power play. Sometimes kids will come back and they'll say, I don't feel safe. I just don't feel safe. I don't want to go back over there. But they can't articulate why they don't feel safe.
Because they don't want to upset the one parent.
You're exactly right. They don't want to. Well, and it's a survival thing. I think you hit the nail on the head. I remember when I was, probably kindergarten, younger, I remember a social worker asking me, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And my mother's sitting on the couch. I'm thinking, "Are you serious?" But I remember I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine." Okay. Are you eating well? Yeah, I'm eating well. I look like I was probably in Auschwitz, right? Because I was not eating well. That was one thing my mother did. She withheld food. But to ask me that question at such a young age with her in the room, huge mistake, and they do that all the time, right? So sometimes it's just out of survival, where kids will say, no, I'm fine, everything's fine, or they will hate the other parent, but they can't tell you why. They can't tell you what this parent exactly did. One thing that I ask kids in the courtroom a lot is I'll say, "Does your mommy talk bad about your daddy?" "No." Because they were told to say that. No. I don't like my daddy. No. Okay. Well,
What did your dad do to you that you don't like him?
and they really can't say, but one question I'll say, why do you think your mommy hates your daddy? And they'll say, because, and sometimes they will just rattle off. See, there's a difference between, did your mommy tell you to say that?
Mm-hmm.
Did your mom talk about it? Because they can anticipate these questions. But when you have a child and you say, why do you think your mommy hates your daddy? Sometimes they'll tell you, well, it's because he did blah, blah, blah. Were you there when XYZ happened? No. Oh, so your mama told you and you believe her because your mama wouldn't lie to you. No, she wouldn't lie to me. My mama told me. There's usually ways around getting around the questions that they're prepared for. Now, another thing be ready for, especially with older children, is older alienated children are beyond disrespectful. They are hateful to the targeted parent. They're hateful to anybody. They're hateful to the targeted parent's attorneys, family members, grandparents. They're just horribly ugly. So I had a counselor testify that this child should not see this father. The father was dangerous. The father was abusive. The father killed the child's dog. And I said, oh my gosh. I'm like, well, you were there. So why didn't you stop him from doing this since you were there? Well, I wasn't there. Well, wait a minute. You just essentially, you testified that you have knowledge that this father killed this child's dog. You testified to that. Well, no. I don't have actual knowledge. Well, who told you that? Oh, the mother told me that.
It's hearsay. Yeah.
And the child told me that. And the child told you that. Okay, but did you call him no. Did you investigate? Do you know he was deployed when he supposedly did this? Do you know he wasn't even in the country when he supposedly did this? So, but then the child testified, and before the counselor, the child was so rude to me, rude to everybody that was connected to the father. And so I asked the counselor, I said, you've been doing counseling with this child for like 3 years. Yes. All right. And in 3 years, the product of your counseling is this beyond disrespectful teenager who the judge, by the way, had to get onto for the level of disrespect in the courtroom. That's the best you could do in 3 years. When there was, all right. She really didn't have an answer for that. So you're counseling this child for 3 years, and this child came in with such hatred. Let me say, healthy doesn't hate. Healthy doesn't hate. Right? There's people who have done you wrong, too, that you forgive. There's people who have done me wrong that I forgive. Hate, healthy doesn't hate. And you don't want.
I lay it out like this. I don't have time to hate anybody.
Yeah,
I either love you, I'll wish you well, or you're irrelevant.
Right.
That's it. Like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like, I have too much going on in my life to worry about other people and hate on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but that's what you have is with these alienated kids. And so a lot of therapists don't understand that. So when they see this level of hatred, well, something must have happened. I mean, kids don't just hate their parents like that for no reason. Yes, they can. If they've been alienated, yes, they can. There was a case I recently had. The little boy was alienated from his dad when he was about 2 or 3 years old. The child's now about 7 years old, can't stand his dad, but he cannot articulate why, just because that's what he's been told all of these years. His dad was a bad person. And he must be. If everybody around him says that, which is his mom, his aunt, his mom's best friend. Okay. So they get it wrong. Counselors get it wrong because they don't understand the dynamics of alienation and the trauma that can be attached to that. They get it wrong. So traditional therapy makes it hands down worse. But as far as recruitment, when you're dealing with these severe alienators, that's what they do. They'll recruit people who they don't think like you. They go to the school. They'll tell the school horrible things about you. Here's a copy of the court order. That's not even a court order, by the way. It's just, a pleading full of their allegations. They'll go to the pediatrician. They will go to counselors. They won't involve you in any of this. So by the time you get involved, you have such a stain on yourself from everything that's been told. I had a guy go to get medical records, and security came out from what the mother told the doctor's office about how dangerous he was, which he wasn't dangerous. Security came out there where, thank goodness, I tell my clients record everything, where we're able to refute some of this stuff. And there was one doctor who was testifying. He was called by the mother at the end of testimony, right? After cross-examination, after being shown different exhibits, and after a lot of the truth that came out just in cross-examination, he said, I will never treat this child. I'm not treating this child anymore. He said, I do not want this mother in my waiting room. And the judge even sat back after he testified, and the judge said, I didn't see that coming, right? Because the doctor realized, I think during the course of his testimony and during cross-examination, that there was a whole lot that he didn't know and that he was lied to. But that's what they do. They will recruit everybody who they think has influence on the decision-making process to go against you and to hate you. And because the desire to win trumps the love that they have for their children. And the trauma that this child are going to have to carry with them is generational. But yet every day the court system still rolls along. It is an adversarial system. So we hear about, let's do collaborative law. Well, that'd be fine. We could do collaborative law, but how do you do collaborative law inside an adversarial system where the parents are pitted against one another? And you have too many attorneys, the vast majority in my experience, they don't care. They just want to get paid. They don't care the trauma that they cause at the end of it all. So when you're going through this, you're not only having to fight the false allegations, you're having to fight the false narrative that is being disseminated to everyone in the court case and these professionals that your child may get drugged to, who are going to get bad information. Because remember, you go to a pediatrician, you go to counselors, therapists, wherever you go to, right? There's this background. And where do the professionals get the background from? From the parents. And generally, you won't even know about the appointment. You're not going to have input. You're not going to be able to give your side of the story. I had a case recently where the mom had an autistic child. Well, the second child, who was my client's daughter, was not autistic, but yet the mother is trying to have this child labeled autistic because she has to stay in her care because she's the only one that can take care of this autistic daughter. Never mind, my client had videos of the child doing everything that the mother said this child was not able to do because she was autistic. The problem is the mother was so ingrained in this community with the professionals who work with the autistic children, they just seem to rally around her, right? So it is an ongoing fight. My trust in professionals, and I say that in air quotes, is probably at an all-time low, because understand, you have people with biases that you can't educate that out of them. If anything, education makes them more biased, right? But these are the same people that you're having to deal with and are going to make recommendations, either medically or to the court, regarding where they think your child should grow up in and whose care your child should grow up in.
Melissa, let me add something else too, and I think this plays a big part in it. This is aside from judges, aside from counselors. Fathers and mothers, especially with sons, raise kids different.
Yes.
Okay? Mm-hmm. With my boy, there was accountability. There was no sitting around all day playing video games.
Yeah.
Okay. Mom's job is to provide that love, affection, the pat on the back. It's okay, honey. You're going to be just fine. Dad's job is to prepare that boy to become a man
Mhm.
and go out into the world
Mhm.
and be successful.
Yes.
Okay? Melissa, there were times, get off the game. You're coming out with me, we're stacking firewood. I got chores to do. This has got to get done. That's got to get done. Is your room clean? Okay? Tasks and results
Mhm.
and accountability. Trying to build a work ethic
Mhm.
in a young man. And then, I take him back to mom. I get the phone call. Was he stacking wood all weekend? No, a couple hours on Saturday with me. Well, he's not going to go there to be your slave. Hey, you want him to play video games when he's with you? You do what you want to do with him when he's with you. When he's with me, it's my job to turn that boy into a man.
Yeah.
Because the world is not going to give a shit about him.
That's right.
So I think the different way that men and women parent, I think, might have a lot to do with this as well. What are your thoughts on that, Melissa?
You're exactly right. I think the God created look of a family is a mother and a father and we have roles. We have gender roles, and it's okay. And I can't lift as much as you, and I can't physically do anything like you, Teddy, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't make me less valuable. I'm not your equal, but it doesn't make me less valuable either. And that's what society has to just stop with everybody has to be equal. We're not equal. We're not. Okay. We have a female ranger. She went through ranger school. She proved that women are equal to men. She did not go through ranger school like they did. No, she did not. There were NDAs signed. I think you and I both have.
We discussed this. Yep.
Exactly. So, but women and society needs to stop pushing women into the belief that we need to be equal. We are not equal. We're just as valuable, but we have different contributions, and that's
There's
okay.
different roles for everybody. I can't do a mom's job. I can't be that loving, it's okay, like I try. Don't get me wrong, I try. But I'm hey, rub some dirt on it and get up. Okay?
Well,
that's how I am.
In terms of women, even when my children were babies, okay, I breastfed. I'm a big believer in breastfeeding. Now I pumped because I still had to go to work. My husband probably bottle fed with breast milk just as much as I breastfed, but I had a role and I was okay with that role and I did it. My kids have good immune systems and I wouldn't take it back, right? But while I'm there cuddling and holding and kissing and snuggling, okay, when my kids get older, my husband's the one throwing them in the air and doing little wrestling with them and building self-esteem. Did you know that like rough play with daddies, it builds self-esteem, it builds confidence in kids, and it actually it helps with boundaries with boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's so much science behind what moms contribute and what dads contribute, but nobody wants to talk about that because we're right now in the process of trying to be brainwashed to believe that men and women are equal. We're equally valuable, I'll say that, but we are not equals, and we have to be okay with that. And the courts have to embrace that, understand that too, because we are turning out some kids who are not healthy. And I can tell you something, Teddy, in the last 15 years, when I've been exclusively representing just dads in family court, I have seen a change in the men from 15 years ago until now. More and more, I see them coming in, being okay with being emasculated. They can't understand why they're disrespected to the level that they are. But then again, they go home and they're just doormats. Right? You will lay on the floor. Don't be surprised if you become a doormat because, well, in one hand, women emasculate men, But then on the other hand, they don't respect men who are emasculated, right? So you're in this vicious cycle within this marriage. And how do you get out of it? Because society tells women, you don't need a man. Don't rely on a man. Don't let a man make you feel bad, even if he's being honest, right?
Well, yeah, they don't need a man, Melissa, until divorce proceedings, and it's like, I want this much child support. I need this much alimony. And Melissa, we talked about this before. Okay.
Mhm.
Very, very, very few women out there, and you're one of the ones that are the exception to this rule, have ever gone out and built anything or done anything on themselves for themselves. And it's those women who I see are constantly out there just taking from men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We discussed a lot about, like, my dad was an idiot with women. Okay. When I was younger, I was an idiot with women.
Most men are, yes.
Okay. I can admit that.
They have their moments, yes.
I can admit that. I've walked through the shit field now, and now I am aware of the piles of shit and where not to step. Okay. But I had to learn that the hard way. All right. And like right now, I look at stuff. Let me tell you, people talk about big red flags. I could see something that big, that little bit of red.
Yeah.
Nope, goodbye. I'm heading the other direction. All right.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't worth it
to
me. All right. And especially these women out there, and guys, listen up. Listen up. This is important. If you're out there in the world and you're a single guy and you meet this woman and you meet for coffee or you go out for dinner, here's what you want to ask her. So, you've been married before, everything else. What happened there? If she starts MFing her ex to you, get up and run.
Get out of there.
Okay. Walk away.
Get out of there.
Walk away. One thing I like to ask. So what was what was it like for you growing up? You can gauge a lot. Okay. They say women who had a childhood where they had to survive will throw a man under the bus to survive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And if this woman grew up and had to be a survivor growing up, sorry, it's not worth that risk. Don't care. All right. Like I could be sitting across from a young Cindy Crawford. All right. Adios. Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
Yep.
Okay. But beware of women who, they bitch about their ex doesn't pay enough child support.
Yeah.
They talk ill of the ex. They've never bought a home, a newer car, anything like that on their own by the fruits of their own labor.
Yeah.
Okay. They have I got that in the divorce. Oh, the house. Oh, I got the house in the divorce. All right. That's how they acquire their stuff.
Yeah.
Guys, pay the bill, get up, and don't walk. Run, and don't look back.
Yeah.
Don't look back. Melissa, am I wrong?
You are not wrong. And stay away from victims. I think that's what he's saying. Listen, if someone is a victim their entire life, they were victimized by this, they were so-and-so's victim. Listen, you will be their next perpetrator. You are their next abuser because they survive in a victim zone. That's what, listen, there's too many men out there. Men want to fix things. The women are looking for a white knight, right? Somebody to make their problems better. No, okay, you guys, listen, you cannot fix anybody. You cannot fix anybody. All you're going to do is you're going to become her next abuser, right?
Yep.
In her head.
And Melissa, to sum it all up, guys, this is the way to sum it up. Mm-hmm. The stripper doesn't like you. Okay?
Right.
Look at the big picture.
Yeah.
She's with you. She's entertaining you for what she can get from you.
That's right.
Stripper doesn't like you. and don't marry the stripper. That's it. Like Melissa, it's like they run wild. Okay. It's like the world is full of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They've never obtained anything on their own.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, you guys, when you're watching these videos and you relate to something, understand this is experience talking. When you hear Teddy, right? I don't have very experience in relationships with crazy women, right? The other side of my case is maybe,
Right here.
And I was raised and listen
Yep.
to Teddy. And when you're going through these court cases, understand that this is experience talking to, and this is what we see happen on a daily basis, on a regular basis. So when you're going through this case, like we said last time, document, but understand what you can't slay a giant that you don't see, right? You can't defeat an enemy that you don't know his strategy, right? And I hate to use the word enemy, but your adversary in court, it's an adversarial system. This person who professed to love you more than anything in the world, and I would never do this or that to you, all of a sudden here they are and they're doing it. So the emotions that come along with this, keep your head on. Don't succumb to your emotions. Be smart about this. And you have to take on this battle in a way that will allow you to come out the other side as unscathed as possible in a relationship with your child. Teddy, any ending thoughts on that?
I attract crazy. So Melissa's 100% right. Whenever I would date somebody, Melissa, my buddies would be like, well, he can attract them from a 5-state radius away. So this one's either a 9 or a 10 crazy. So, and I don't know maybe that's a different episode, Melissa. I don't know.
The hot crazy matrix.
Yes. But
Yep.
let me tell you, tire slash, car keyed, bunny in the pot. It's, guys, I've got stories. All right. But that I've overcome that. Okay. That was my problem. I don't blame any of them.
Yep.
My fault for ignoring all the red flags. And that'll be in an episode down the road, Melissa. Don't marry the stripper. That's all I'm going to say.
There you go.
Don't marry the stripper.
All right, Teddy. It's been fun, and we will see each other again soon.
You got it, Melissa. Thanks.